All right, welcome back. Today we have the second day of the 2 days of Buffalo Stage Race. Today we have the Pendleton Road Race, and this is a new course for me. Last year we ran a different course, but there was a last second change due to some road construction. So I'm coming into this race a little blind as far as knowing what the course holds. We did know that there was going to be a lot of wind. This area is known for the wind. So we're looking at a southwest to northeast wind with gusts of 25 to 30 miles an hour. So pretty strong. And we're turning into this section here that we're going to end up with a little bit of a cross headwind for most of this back section. And then we turn directly into a straight headwind. So it was going to be interesting how the wind was going to play a factor. But other than that, it's a hand flat course. I think we had less than 50 feet of elevation per 7 mile laps. So we all pretty much knew that the wind was going to be the defining feature of the course today. Like I said, so we had 6 laps, and we're picking it up here on the fourth lap. We're just a little over halfway done with the race. We're looking at about 7 miles per lap, with a little over 44 miles for the total race. And up till now, there hasn't been too much action. We do have two guys off the front that went from pretty much the gun and established a small break. And they're holding around 15, 20 seconds, up to about 30 seconds at times. And we'd get in this little cycle where we pull them back and then we'd slow up and they'd pull out a little bit more of a gap. I don't think we wanted to catch them this early, so we're kind of just letting them out right in the wind. It is a pretty strong headwind, so I don't think anybody was too worried that we wouldn't be able to pull them back when we wanted to. But getting everybody on the same page and working together was a little harder than I think most people expected. So going into this race, my goals actually changed a little bit. Here we see Patrick, who's the race leader, just pull off to the right there in the leader's jersey. So he had taken the TT and he came second in the crit yesterday. And I wasn't really expecting to contest the overall podium much, but after my win yesterday in the crit, I actually ended up tied in second place. So my goals coming into this shifted, and I was just trying to maintain a podium spot. So Patrick here had a pretty huge lead and really just needed to finish within the top 10, I think, and he would take the overall. Zach, who took third in the sprint yesterday, and I were tied for second. So my goal for the day was to contest the sprint, but mostly I was trying to maintain that podium spot, which means I needed to stay ahead of Zach. So Zach was really the rider I was going to be marking, and he's being smart right now. You can't see him because I think he's on my wheel, and I'm guessing he probably was thinking the same thing. We were both tied, so we kind of were both keeping a close eye on each other just in case one of us wanted to roll off the front and try anything crazy. So we're rolling along here, not going too fast, rolling into the headwind, but not putting out a huge amount of effort. So we'll fast forward a little bit. So we're picking it up on the same lap, still in lap 4. We're now in a direct headwind, and we're coming into turn 3 here, and it's a little bit of a U-turn. So as expected, it turns out to be a little bit of a pinch point. Everybody slows down coming into the turn, and then just hammers it coming out. So this had kind of been repeating the first couple laps, and everybody expected it. I give this guy here a little bit of a gap. I'm not trying to close the gap. I know it's just going to slow down. So I thought I would be able to just roll into the back of him and conserve some momentum and hopefully not have to hammer it as much coming out of the turn. So we'll see how that goes. And I let a little bit of a gap here, which you can see I put out a little bit of a spike, but I'm hoping, and there you see a couple people come by me. I'm trying to conserve as much energy as possible here and make other people close, and there goes Zach and Patrick, and now I'm on Patrick's wheel. I'm putting out a little effort because I don't want to let them go. Those are the two people that I was really paying attention to in this race, and I end up having to put in a little bit more effort here to try to catch back on because I got a little worried that they would attack and form a small break. So I really should have been a lot closer on their wheels and in their draft to conserve energy. And there you just see I had to spike up, and this guy is actually letting a little bit of a gap go. So I end up having to put in a bigger effort just to get around him and up to this small front group of 4 or 5 guys that are pretty strong, and I don't want to just let run up the road. So I do end up catching them, and at first I thought we were going to keep pressing on, but it ends up just slowing up and everybody comes back together. So more effort than I wanted to put in, and kind of right back where we started coming into this back stretch. So we're still on lap 4, coming into the final turn of the course, and then into the home stretch and finish line. Again, you can see I'm opening up a little bit of a gap, thinking that I will try to conserve my momentum and not have to brake, and I did a little bit better of a job there. Didn't have to brake at all and maintain my speed a lot better going through that turn. So this section of the course, from that turn, I think we have about a half a mile to the finish line. We got a cross tailwind coming from our right, though it did feel sometimes like it was a straight crosswind. The wind was pretty brutal today, not to mention the heat. I forgot to mention the beginning, so we're looking at mid 80s and pretty humid, and the heat definitely played a role for most of us, me for sure. I had 3 bottles. I ended up taking 2 in the cages and 1 in my back pocket just because I didn't have anybody in the feed zone to hand up a bottle, so it wasn't that hard to just stick it in my pocket, take a couple big swigs, and then I ended up tossing that bottle on one of the earlier laps. So coming in the last few hundred meters here, and you can see on the right, it's very exposed to the wind, and everybody's pushing up towards the center line here. But you can see people in the feed zone and coming across the finish line there. So one of the good things about a lap race like this is that you get more than a few opportunities to see the finish line and think about how you're going to approach it. And after the first couple laps, I think everybody was kind of knew that the left side was going to be the faster line and hopefully not exposed to the wind as much. So as you saw, everybody was kind of hugging that center line, and my guess was that that was going to be the more contested line coming into the sprint. So we'll pick it back up here. We are on the final lap, and we have caught the breakaway at this point. So this is the front of the race here. And we're in the headwind section, so nobody really wants to put in a lot of work knowing that it's the last lap and you're just going to get beaten by the wind here. So not putting out a huge amount of power, not going too fast. And that guy in the green there on the left there was one of the guys in the breakaway, and I think he actually managed to stay with the pack for the finish. So good on him. They put out a lot of work staying in the breakaway and at least animating the race some. So a lot more interesting than just having a group ride kind of race. So we're coming into this U-turn section, and kind of like always, it slows down a bit. I knew these two guys here on the front that I'm riding up to. I thought that they might put in a dig. The guy in the blue from IBCC, he had been going off the front a few times, and there you can see he puts in a little bit of an attack, not too crazy, but you can see they already starting to open up a gap. And my goal, I didn't really worry about him too much. Maybe I should have, but I again let somebody else close. And you should see here, there are going to be a couple people coming by me to close the gap. I really just didn't want to do the work myself. So there's a rider. And again, I see him go, and he's not too much of a concern for me. And there, and you can see I almost hit 900 watts, and I'm not sure why I'm chasing him down, honestly. He wasn't one of the guys I was really marking, and I don't think he was going to challenge the podium in the GC, so I really should have just let him go. And I kind of ease off a little bit and realized that, hoping that somebody else is going to end up closing the gap. So you see a couple more riders there. And again, the front is actually slowing down, so I figured I don't have to put out a huge effort to get back on. And again, I'm really trying to mark Zach and Patrick as they're the other two guys on the podium and the ones I was really worried about. So we'll pick it up here a little bit further down the road. Still a big group. We're getting in position, coming into turn 4, getting ready to come down the final turn. And at this point, I know Zach is on my wheel directly behind me, and I made a joke to him that I told him I knew what he was doing because he basically led me out yesterday in the crit, and I think that he decided to have me lead out him coming into this sprint. So he's positioning really well on my wheel, and at this point I'm a little farther forward than I wanted to be. We still had a good half a mile or so after this final turn to the finish line, and I was really far forward and really should have done a better job of hanging back and letting everybody else work. But as we make that final turn, you can see the two guys off the front already are putting out a big effort in their final attack, and this definitely wasn't the smartest move by me, because I end up putting in this big effort to pull them back, and all I'm doing is pulling the entire field behind me, including the two guys that I'm trying to mark and anybody else that's going to contest this sprint. So as you can see, I'm putting out 400, 500 watts to catch these two guys, and we still have, a good 500 meters to the line. So at this point, you can see I slowed down because I'm at the front and this is way too early. And there goes the IBCC rider. He starts just putting in his attack. There goes Zach right by me and Patrick. And at this point, 900 watts, that's as much as I can. I'm cramping up at this point. I can't even stand up to get out of the saddle for a sprint. And unfortunately, see all these guys just rocket right past me. So I end up taking 5th. I think Zach took fourth place and maintained a third place overall. Patrick took second place in the sprint and took the GC. And the guy from the blue jersey IBCC, he ended up taking the win and moved all the way up into second place overall with a really good long sprint. He launched from quite a ways out and was able to hold everybody off in that final sprint. So I don't know what kind of power he was putting out, but definitely had to be putting out some big watts because that was a good sprint. I just didn't have anything in the legs today. I think I ended up putting a little too much out, a few points on the course earlier in the race, especially that last lap. There was a couple spots where I ended up having to close a gap and put out more energy than I wanted to. So I just really didn't have much in the sprint. So good job to Zach too. Um, he ended up taking third spot on the podium. So that was that was a good race overall. And I can't be too unhappy. I did take, I think I got fourth overall, and did get enough points to get my Cat 3 upgrade, which I'm happy about going into next season. So, not a bad end of the season for me. Now it's just on to cross season, which is coming up in the next few months.